That's tough, though. That's a tough thing to see.
Yeah.
If you're not generally interacting in the end of combat.
Well, Tom
step.
also moves pretty quick, so it's difficult to tell if Jesse even had the time to process that line as something that existed, if he wasn't already just.
I think
super aware
the
of
wasteland will be in play before the end of combat step is completed.
But
so
if that's not something you've ever done before, no matter how sharp of a player you are, you need a few seconds to parse it.
I played a lot with Azorius Charm.
Okay.
And like the interaction of like Azorius Charm and Gore Clan Rampager a few years ago. So like a lot of times you'd leave up Azorius Charm to like brick their Rampager, and then you could, once they decided not to pull the trigger, you could end of turn or end of combat charm
the same trick you used to do it with Mazavith, where you give your own creature pseudo-vigilance
sometimes. Untap it, sure. Same type of thing.
Yeah.
But again, if that's not a dynamic you're familiar with, I don't at all begrudge you for not seeing that. It's kind of tricky.
I've actually loved that line on the card Blessed Alliance, where you just like, your opponent goes to attacks and you block their tiny creature, and then in end of combat you like gain 4 and kill their Needle Spires or something crazy like that.
After damage resolves, so that they don't have a chump attacker to throw away. Sure. I think that Jesse might even the score here, though. It looks like all his permanents are gone.
Yeah.
All Tom's permanents are gone, aside from 2 elves.
Yeah, it looks like Tom picked up the forest at some point, because it's not something that Jesse would have been able to wasteland, so unclear how that got to his hand.
Oh, City died.
Yeah, so City is actually a triggered ability, so you do get to float.
So you get to float mana.
It's not like the Legend rule and it doesn't die right away. It is a trigger.
I think you just cast Oblivion Sower here. Why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't take it with you.
Yeah, I just think that...
And he also just, like, are potentially supposed to be bricking Cradles. Why is he paying 8 mana? He's... Okay, so he maybe didn't realize he could float 2 mana?
He tapped it and, like, he gestured like he floated it.
It's difficult to tell, because he's now paid 8 towards a 6-drop. So, unclear what's going on there. Not likely that it matters. We'll have to ask.
There are so many giant creatures in play, and so few things on Tom's side of the board.
Ayavugan does a good job at producing monsters.
We actually saw Tom Ellis lose a game.
Yeah.
I guess we saw him get Iona'd.
You know what the problem was his Nissa Vital Force got taken by Jesse from that trigger, and that's why Jesse was able to win, because he found the card imbued with all of the good vibes for the matchup.
Yep.
So
back to the boards.
Do we think that Tom maybe is reboarding now that he's seeing more of the deck? Perhaps like the slower elements of the...
I think the discard spells get even better on the play because they can't cheese you with like turn 1 Chalice.
Sure. Yeah, because they are not a Force of Will deck, so they are not stopping.
And also, like, if you did a Thought Seize for a Thought Knot, that changes like the whole dynamic of everything.
Yeah, you're able to maybe snipe
the Thought Knot costs you like a card and like 8 life from the attacks and a chump. Like you can just pay your 2 life up front.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
You're also able to like check and see if there's something like an Ola's Dust or a Ratchet Bomb waiting to just blow you out.
Yeah, they can't really commit to like Reality Smasher on no interaction in the previous turns.
Yeah.
So like they tap out for Reality Smasher after having not interacted with you on the previous 2 turns. They're probably dead.
Yeah, 100%.
So that said, like Thought Knot being the one that you can always tap out for because it provides interaction as well is like the biggest thing to attempt to mitigate from Tom's perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think he'll seek to do that like almost whatever means necessary.
Yeah, Tom's no slouch. I'm sure he understands all of these things about the matchup as well. Certainly a very experienced Elves pilot.
Tom was pretty close to winning that game too.
Yeah.
Like he was like the Elves always feels like it's just a card or 2 off of getting there.
In every matchup other than Miracles. Against Miracles and lands, it's comically bad. Like, sometimes Elves just sneaks under, but a lot of the time it's just like, I have a Terminus, here's a Jace, you lose.
The Miracles Elves matchup is pretty reminiscent of like the Mono Blue Devotion Blue White Control matchup from a few years ago, where like all your cards matter and it's interactive and it's interesting and it's tricky and it's supposed to be like Miracles is favored pretty seriously, but like if you just sequence right and like gain all the little edges,
sometimes
like,
you can just randomly win. But like if they just go countertop Terminus, you're just like,
I've seen Sam
over.
Black just like countertop locked, and he's just playing Elves. And he's just like morph Birchlore Rangers.
Yeah,
go.
Show me a 3.
He's like attack you for 2.
Yeah,
kind of sweet.
Legacy's a little bit faster now that Miracles isn't on the mono and
we got our players drawing out their hands for this third and deciding game to see who goes to the finals of the EE6 satellite platinum satellite at Bearded Dragon.
Yes.
Bernardsville, New Jersey.
Yep, and it looks like they're both going to mull to 6. Like we addressed earlier, Elves fantastic on mulligans. Eldrazi also quite strong on mulligans because it just puts itself down so many cards anyway.
Does a bunch of things. that are like kind of the same thing, for lack of a better way to describe it. But like they can go turn 2 Thought Knot on 7 cards. They can go turn 2 Thought Knot on 6 cards. Well, they only need like a couple. They only need 3 cards to have their nut opening.
Yeah.
And like you often end up with excess cards that don't really matter.
Yep.
Because there's so much redundancy to your deck.
Yeah, you also will just like draw some lands that maybe matter, maybe don't.
I generally think that this actually like the mulliganing is actually good for Jesse, I think.
Yeah. I also think that this matchup hasn't been super indicative of how the matchups usually go. Yep. I think Eldrazi is heavily favored in this matchup.
You think Eldrazi is heavily favored in this matchup? When
they have the 4 chalices, I think so. Because Jesse's only on the 2 main deck, the chalice is just like a free win in game 1 most of the time.
Mm-hmm. They can beat it. They can like he doesn't have a Sage, right?
Yeah, no.
Oh no, he does have a Sage.
He has a main deck Sage.
Like Zenith for Sage and then like cast everything in a row and go nuts.
But with and without the Warping Whales main, so like the stock list usually has a bunch more chalice and the multiple Warping Whales to counter the Zeniths and things like that. And so we actually haven't seen Jesse cast a single Mimic, even though there are 4 in his deck and we've seen him 3 times so far. Pretty crazy. He must just be boarding them out constantly. I feel like they're just consistently outclassed unless you're in a combo matchup, right?
Yeah. Wait, what card is this?
Eldrazi Mimic.
Oh, yeah.
He's got 4 in his main deck, and we've just never seen one because I think he's constantly boarding them out.
I think he's boarding them out. It's possible. He becomes like he slows down into be like really, really focused on disruption.
Yeah. I also think it's just like a concession to racing the combo decks, and in every other matchup where they play a dude, you're just like, I have this 2-1 that trades poorly.
See, I like Mimic. I like those draws from the deck, but I think that like something has to give when you're sideboarding, and that makes sense as the one.
Yeah.
It doesn't really block well either.
He doesn't really have. He actually has 0 copies of Endless One, which is not something I had previously noticed. Almost always just a staple in that you can just jam all your mana.
And a Reshaper, yep.
Yeah, so this Reshaper is uncounterable.
But non-interactive so far from Jesse's perspective, which has to bode well for Tom.
Yeah, so if Tom just has like Cradle Natural Order, this game is going to be over very quickly.
Cradle Natural Order is just not even that good, right?
Well, off the Arbor, it's close to lethal. You just play another creature first, and you just win.
Yeah, he just plays...
Because the Crater Hoof has +4, and then all 3 other creatures have +3, or +4, and it's just lethal.
6 and 6.
Yeah. 6, 6, 5, and 9 is just 32 trample. The game just ends.
Yeah.
I've done this a lot. You didn't interact, you're dead. That's a very easy line to string together. But of course, it requires Tom to have the other 2 best cards in the deck.
You know, the finish.
Cradle into But if he has it, it's going to be lights out. I don't know what he could be worried about from Jesse's side. Okay, so it looks like he doesn't have it.
Tom boarded in his Null Rod. He's got a Null Rod in his hand, I think.
What does the Null Rod do?
Stops GT.
Okay. That's okay. That's enough.
And I think it stops. Is there another artifact with negative ability? No.
The Ratchet Bomb, but it's a 1-of.
Ratchet Bomb. Well, it's still GT Ratchet Bomb. Okay. Makes sense. So it stops the Batterskull in his sideboard, but I doubt he even thinks he's going to board that in.
So we see Jesse flip his he blocks with Reshaper on the Nettle Sentinel, correctly identifying that it's still good for a mana, and he actually flips into GT, which is quite good here.
And then
so we see a Zenith for 2. It's quite likely
right? Or maybe Scavenging Ooze.
So I think
2 creatures in the graveyard. You can start to work up from a low base.
So, okay.
Yep, with Scavenging Ooze.
Okay.
Good call by Daddy.
I actually wouldn't have minded trying to wait a turn and trying to find a Reclamation Sage either. I think that
he has Null Rod. He doesn't care.
Oh, true. Okay, that's actually in his hand.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I saw it when he was shuffling. Okay. It's got pretty distinct art.
Okay, I thought that was in his deck still. Okay, yeah.
Well, no. I only knew he boarded it in because it's in his hand.
Okay.
His hand is Null Rod and 1 other card.
Yeah, okay, so then I'm firmly off the Rec Sage plan if you already have the Null Rod, yeah.
Yeah, this is why it worked out the way it did.
So we're going to see Spatial Contortion, so that was
so we're seeing the sideboard cards earn their keep here.
Yeah, a good card.
And Jesse has to be over the moon that this GT is here with such little resistance.
Yeah, so Jesse's hand is actually looking pretty lackluster.
Like he doesn't realize he's going to get Null Rodded.
So Jesse's hand is an Eye of Ugin, a Cavern of Souls,
and what looks to be the Null Rod, right, to insulate against Thought Knot.
Yeah, his hand looks to just be 2 Warping Whales, actually. Jesse's hand is 2 lands, and I believe it's definitely 1 Warping Whale.
Warping Whale does some work here.
Yeah. So this Cavern, obviously naming Eldrazi.
Got a Smasher?
Yeah. So this is going to be great. 5U.
See, these broken games, I think, bode well for Jesse because like Tom has like cards, but
they
some
don't
of them
matter.
are like double reactive. Like they're in to combat something that's in the deck to combat his game plan.
Yeah.
And like he got a card out of his null rod, but like I don't think it actually matters
Yeah.
because it's just not an elf.
This is also just some. Well, the GJ was a free card from the trigger that he already got to block with. So he
This
was
is
plus
weird,
that card.
a weird dynamic here, and like I know that like you got to answer GT, and I know that if GT gets online, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
But like you have a lot of ways to answer GT anyway, like with bounces and like with between like Ranger and Symbiote, like you can
100%.
answer.
You have a lot of combat tricks.
Most GTs that are not on Smashers.
Yeah. So this is also just how I feel that Elves loses some of the time. It's just you only draw one Visionary and don't get to loop it, and then you just run out of gas.
So like how many tournaments are we away from Walking Ballista being in Jesse's deck? Because it's gonna be at some point.
Yeah, I made that joke earlier in that it's not an Eldrazi, but I mean I really do think
but like just imagine it here, just crazy. It's
Yeah.
Walking Ballista Stone Rain you.
Well, it also would have won him the other round if he had room for the one.
Just like
because his opponent was just at 1 for 4 turns before stabilizing.
Yeah, but you can't eye for it.
No,
Unfortunately,
you can't eye for it. If you could eye for colorless creatures, oh man, that card, the Eye-Vugan would have been banned much earlier. But it's just been tutoring up worm coils out of Tron forever. Card's way too good.
Wait, you can tutor. You can't tutor up Wormcoil, right?
No, I'm pretty sure it only tutors Eldrazi cards. Is it any colorless creature? Oh,
Oh, so you can tutor up Walking Ballista.
All right, we broke
I'm
it.
on it.
We broke it.
Next tournament, we're registering it.
Tron lands too. I'm firmly on the mono soul lands plan. None of this wasteland nonsense. You can have your lands. Blow up your dudes.
So it looks like Tom might have to. Oh, he doesn't have the creatures up to do it yet. He's gonna have to stand pat, and the next turn, try to trade his board for the Smasher.
But so the Walking Ballista might actually just be a cuter version of Endbringer, if we're being honest.
Well, you don't have to wait to untap. You can
but Endbringer untaps twice.
Yeah, but if you untap once, you just win.
But you get to wait and then untap twice. That's the same trade as never untapping.
No, it's not.
I'm sure it is.
You just play Walking Ballista and kill all their stuff immediately.
But you don't even have Snake in your deck, so it doesn't. I'm convinced that card doesn't even work.
All right. I think we have successfully derailed the broadcast again about some hypothetical standard card that's not in any of the decks that we're watching.
Card's gasoline.
It is good. I think it actually is the future of a lot of these colorless type decks.
Yeah, it's just a better Triskelion.
Oh.
Oh, and we're gonna see some Oblivion get sown. And 4 spells that he would have loved to have.
6 mana 5/8 is a jam though.
Yeah. Especially just it still can't get the GT because it currently does nothing thanks to No Rod's flavor text. Shout out to
I think Tom may have a copy of Abrupt Decay in his hand, which is like furtherly odd because he already has an answer to the GT and nothing else to do with it.
Yeah, so I'd like to see just attack with both. So I am pretty sure that Jesse's hand still has a Warping Wheel in it. So I would like to see him exile something like this Dryad Arbor or something like
yeah, I mean Tom could go for the weird quad block and just get destroyed by Warping Whale.
Yeah. But he's at 8, so I think you just chump and go to 3.
I think
you waste the Dryad Arbor. Yeah, I like this a lot.
I like that.
I like that line. Just trim him off a blocker.
I think we're finally seeing Tom's run of diving through hoops and like sneaking out tough ones.
Yeah,
like
everybody gets one, but Tom's already used all 3 of his ones.
Yeah. I think Nettle Sentinel might be worse than Visionary.
So this Blink Moth is actually also just fantastic right now, right? Because it's a second evasive threat between the trample and the flying.
Yep. So I mean, Tom only has so much time at 3 life.
Yeah, and it will.
No,
yeah, okay. And so that's gonna be the handshake. So
the match goes to Jesse Machusak and his Eldrazi deck.
Yeah. So we're gonna now cut to the other top 4 match.